Hello, everyone. I'm Amy. I included a giant photo of myself just to be clear that I'm fine being photographed, and that's my Twitter handle, Simply Secure there. I'm happy to continue the conversation elsewhere. Feel free to photograph me, share all that stuff. Super quick context around what Simply Secure is. We are a nonprofit. Our executive director, Scout Brody, is in Philadelphia in the US. I am new to Berlin. We are fostering a community of UX professionals, designers, developers, researchers, and users. And our goal is to improve software by creating and distributing free, open resources. We do not create code, we do resources. So if you only take one word from my talk, that word is resources. Here are our resources. Tweet them, share them, break them, fork them. Tell us how they are or are not working for you. What I'm going to do during this talk is give you a little bit of a teaser about why these resources can help you in your work. And then I'd like to shift the conversation into a more explicit discussion of ethics and edge cases. So last December, we did some in-context field work in New York. This was looking at people in Brownsville and Harlem, two predominantly African-American communities, about their perceptions of privacy and surveillance. So this is me talking to someone about how she uses mobile messaging. From that study, three things came out. There was a tech report. I think Ian, the Pets just tweeted out a version of that. I'm not going to go into the findings and outcomes beyond a quick teaser. There are additionally some resources, that's the key word, resources that you can all use in your own work. And then finally, this community discussion as a kind of thought starter for the next thing. So in terms of what came out of it, when we met with people, we heard that surveillance is inevitable and privacy is impossible. So at the time that we were doing this research, in December of 2015, the US conversation about race, class, policing, violence, Black Lives Mattering was not at the same place that it is now. It's been a very intense and wrenching summer in the United States. So this is turning out for really awful reasons to be more timely perhaps now, but I think it's important to recognize that in all kinds of communities, there are people who are disproportionately targeted by surveillance, and we need to figure out ways to make sure that they're represented in these conversations. Key thing to take away is these communities have technologists and cryptographers in them. Crypto Harlem doing some amazing work. There are many other organizations. The people in this study did not identify as activists, and they did not identify as technologists. So that's just a really important piece of context. So one way in which this in-person qualitative fieldwork helped was reframing some of these narratives. So this is a mobile phone store / gold jewelry store in Harlem. And I'm including this photo because this is an example of a place that people go for tech support, where people go to pay their bills. And this is one touch point in a service economy where the people in the study had an adversarial relationship with their mobile phone carrier. They believed that the carrier had filled their phones with malware and bloatware, which I think is a reasonable assumption if you're talking about a low-cost Android handset, in that the carrier was trying to push software to break their phone because they wanted more money. So they were speaking of scenarios a lot like ransomware and malware in complete commercial language. Why? The carriers want to break your phone to force you to upgrade. So that's the teaser of the study. Let's talk resources. I have been so gratified to see such enthusiasm and so many interesting human factors tracks, EuroUSEC on Monday, and all kinds of people doing user studies. That is so important. Everything that I'm saying here is in support of doing more of that, of getting more people doing it and of doing it better. So just, I'm going to do my own kind of survey to take a sense of who's in the audience. Who here has actually done some form of user study or usability study? A few people. Okay, great. Are you in organizations that have some kind of process for consent for human subjects research or some kind of human subjects protocol? Couple? Okay. So good. For those of you that don't know, there's a long history, both in the US and globally, of people conducting experiments on humans. Everything from, Stanley Milgram and other kinds of like psychological, biological, biomedical research can have negative consequences on people. Many technologists come from a point of view that, like, relative to brain surgery, there's very little bad that can happen to you for participating in a study. I would like to gently suggest that that is not true. We have seen some excellent strides in the journalistic community, for example, around the importance of protecting sources. So I'd like to plant a small seed that some of our more vulnerable participants may need similar measures to protect them. So if you're doing user research in an academic context, you may have this Committee for Human Subjects Protocol document that you require everyone to sign. That is not very user-facing language, and it sets up kind of a weird power dynamic where you're explicitly telling the person that you are interviewing that you're experimenting on them. I mean, that's what that document says. I believe it's an important safeguard, but we can do better. One example resource we have to do better is this Participants' Bill of Rights. This is small and a lot of text. This is a commercial to say, hey, get on GitHub and look at it and let us know what you think. The point here is we're taking a more consumer-facing mindset. Again, this was research done in New York. I'm not sure how this will extend globally, where people that we spoke with that are our participants mostly worked in retail jobs. They were super clear about what complaining to a supervisor meant. That was just like a thing that they knew, that it had happened to them. They knew that it was something that they could do. It sets up a very different power dynamic when I come to them and I say, hi, I'm Amy Elliott. My boss is Scout Brody. This is her contact information. If something doesn't go right in this interview, you can get in touch with her and complain. So that's already kind of just destabilizing that in some ways, where people know they can refuse to answer questions, they can get up and leave, they'll still be paid. They must explicitly opt into the collection of data like photos, videos, etc. Many of these points are the same points that are presented in different language in existing documents. Okay, the next thing, model releases. Just the word model release is already kind of provocative. And again, I want to express the warmest enthusiasm and the strongest solidarity for the academic research that I've seen all week. It's been great and inspiring. I've seen large samples, I've seen statistics, I've seen a bunch of things. My role as a design director, I'm a user experience designer, I'm a practitioner, I'm not an academic, is not doing social science research. We do not audio record or video record our interviews. So that's an important distinction because in some cases, just the act of participating in academic research and doing publishing may lead you to feel that you must audio record everything, transcribe it, have one or more people code it. And in some cases that might make sense, but I just want to make space in this room amongst you all to question if that needs to be the case in every situation. So, if you're working with more privacy-conscious people, there are many reasons why they would not consent to photo or audio or videos. So we take handwritten notes. I've been in interviews where I took no notes. I just listened to people and then went away later and wrote things down later. In this case, everyone that participated in this New York study was fine with handwritten notes. And then we gave people an option to opt into some form of photography. So, photography is an important tool for building empathy, for bringing bits of people's context with them into other kinds of places. So I have given longer or different versions of this talk, less focused on the ethics and more specifically focused on the outcomes. But this is an image that I know if I see it in 10 or 15 years, I will know what the story behind it is. The reason I know that is because I've been doing this kind of research for about 15 years, and I can see images from studies I did in 2001, a photograph of a participant, and I remember that conversation. So the story that I want to plant with you in New York, Dunkin' Donuts is a big deal. Like, New Yorkers are super into Dunkin' Donuts. They're super into their coffee. People are also really into saving money, especially at the holiday time. This took place a little bit before Christmas. This is one of our participants that we met her in this Dunkin' Donuts. She's a big user of DD Perks, which is an app you see advertised over her shoulder. It's an Android app, and essentially it's taking all of her location information and all the contacts from her address books, literally for the price of a cup of coffee. I mean, that's the reality. You can look at the Android app permissions. They're hugely popular. I mean, the most recent statistics of how often they've been downloaded, if you look across a range of fast food restaurants, it's a lot of people are doing this. There's not a lot of conversation around exactly like how those mean. She's super motivated by saving money. This is, in her mind, just the digital version of the punch card where can't you get, buy 10, whatever, cups of coffee, get a coffee free. There's this whole gifting virtual currency element, and that's why she's done this. There's a clear value proposition. Okay, so this is an example of, hey, photos can be useful for storytelling. How do you get them in ways that are respectful? Our default is no photography at all, but people can opt into non-personally identifiable photography or even something that is identifiable. And to make sure that people were clear on what we were talking about, we shared examples from the Humans of New York Instagram feed. So I don't know if people are familiar with this. It's controversial in some ways and cool in some ways. This actually is kind of interesting. This is a guy who had been working at the UN to be a human rights lawyer and became so disillusioned that he decided to open a bar. Like, this is literally a story that he's telling. He's not named, but you see his face. All of our participants were familiar with Humans of New York, or HONY as it's called, and they understood what it meant to say, hey, if you consent, I would like to share photos of your face like this with a story that does not name you. You and I can leave this interview. You can disappear back into New York. I don't know your name. I don't know how to find you. Our participant recruiter handled all of that information. But I'm interested in sharing this. This can go up on Twitter. This can go all kinds of places. So, let's see here. If people sign a model release, take a couple minutes at the end and make them look good. This is an in-progress interview shot that's like pretty mediocre. Like, yes, interview happened, that's me, that's the participant. The man with the headphones you see is the example image from Humans of New York. This is the photograph that we took at the end. It's intended to be a powerful, compelling photograph. It's shot from a lower angle. If you're interested in this, there's a ton of stuff out in the world right now about how to do photography. Your participants deserve respect, and if they consent to this, you should make them look good. Oops, sorry. Okay, I want to make sure that we have conversations, so I'm going to jump into some of the questions. I'm not sure why my toolbar is still there, but okay. These are examples of non-identifiable photography: feet, shoes, purses, nails, phones. It's very interesting to me when I see the McDonald's app, as in this lower right corner, is occupying such a prominent place on someone's home screen. But what's going on with these photos? Who is this person? Should they have given consent? An example of how people may be harmed. These are some young men from a group interview we did, and they were talking about how the police in New York are impersonating their friends on Facebook, and then they are then subsequently being arrested based on their Facebook likes. So in that context, there's a ton of reasons you wouldn't want to instrument someone's computer and sniff and grab all of their, for example, Facebook likes. So to launch us into the discussion, here are a few provocations. Should this photo require a release? Does it matter if that's him? Does it matter if that's his dead brother? Does it matter if that's a celebrity? I mean, this is an example of an edge case. I know some computer scientists are super excited about edge cases, so think about this as an example of an edge case about sharing the screen and what should be on that. Also, the study that I used as a case study was 100% qualitative, small scale, in person. This is also true on the quant side. I know the Tor UX team has been doing some really interesting thinking around non-identifiable metrics. There is a whole ecosystem around how apps work, how the web works, around tracking. But what does it mean when we as a community do user research with people who have no problem installing logging apps, have no problem consenting to be surveilled? If you work for Mechanical Turk, you've said, please instrument my computer, record it all. That's fine, that's how I earn my money. I think that you can still do good research in that context, but it does us good to be more explicit about the limits. So alternatives, how confident are we that their behavior of the Mechanical Turkers extends to others? And finally, are your people representative? What's the threat model? How would they be harmed? So with that, resources, resources, resources. I thank you all. Get involved. We have a Slack channel, and happy to take questions and discussion.